Hello, I am the Script Doctor, and welcome to the channel. Well, I've gotten to the point of counting how many episodes we have left of Lower Decks until we don't have to see it again. 4 down, 6 to go. And while last week's episode was better than the previous one, this week's show only disappoints. Episode 4, Moist Vessel, ugh. That's not even a clever title associated with what happens in this episode. Rivalries or family rivalries would be far more appropriate, but I digress. Lower Decks opens with a captain's log. Like the previous episode, we're getting more focus on the senior staff instead of the title characters. This log updates us that the Cerritos is assisting a sister ship named the MacLeod in transporting a derelict generation ship, but as the captain is speaking, we're taken to the briefing room where she finishes up her log with compliments to her fellow captain. So she recorded her captain's log as part of her mission briefing? Is that her killing 2 birds with 1 stone? Would it not be more fitting to the brand of Star Trek to finish a captain's log and then cut to the action of a scene where Freeman introduces the other captain as part of the next stage of the story? Do the writers even understand the function of an officer's log? It is pure exposition of the boring elements of the story, used briefly to carry the audience into the more interesting moments. It is used as a function to address passage of time quickly and effectively, or if airing on network television, update and remind the audience of the episode they're watching with a supplemental log. It's part of the brand's franchise and format, but in this style it comes across as strange because with a brief moment of thought, I am seeing that Freeman is standing at the front of the room with her fellow captain entering a ship's log and the rest of her senior staff having to silently wait for her to complete the entry. That's kind of funny, but for some reason it doesn't feel like that was an intentional joke. It actually feels more like a poor edit between 2 scenes. Traditionally, the format would be Freeman does her log, expresses her joy in working with an old shipmate again, and then cuts to the scene where the captain provides new information on the generation ship that builds on what we learned from the log. In fact, this episode's opening scene does have all the parts needed for a very Star Trek-like episode. Let's cut out the repetition and re-edit for a better flow. Like this.
Stardate 57538.9. The Cerritos is working alongside the USS Merced in the relocation of an ancient generation ship, which due to some unknown calamity, never reached its destination. Her crew, adrift for centuries, mummified in disabled cryo units. Their most precious cargo, mysterious containers of molecular fluid which generates life from inorganic material. We suspect they plan to use it on a dead planet to create a habitable environment they could call home. The Merced is here to ensure the generation ship is preserved during transportation, and I want everyone to give them full support.
Starfleet believes this alien vessel is equipped with unique terraforming technology.
Trouble sleeping, Ensign?
Nah, I slept great. I mean, maybe too good, honestly.
Just distribute the pads.
Towing it will be a delicate procedure. Even the slightest flux in tractor beam stabilization could damage...
I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. It is just so much information.
And let the scene play out to completion as it originally was. In a change of pace, the teaser actually reflects the rest of the episode far more directly than we've seen before. Mariner is getting chewed out for her poor etiquette. When Ransom enters the scene, he corrects himself for questioning why Mariner hasn't been kicked off the ship, then suggests that she may put in for a transfer if she's given all the terrible duty jobs. The captain pulls a glad I thought of it trope as if it were her idea, which is rather derivative for this type of situation. However, the writers go in a more rare direction with her first officer's reaction to this trope. Ransom compliments her, not even showing an irritation to what she just did. And I kind of liked the fact that Ransom doesn't care about it. Since he stated that Mariner doesn't belong on the ship, it doesn't matter to him who takes credit for kicking her off the ship, so long as she's kicked off the ship. That shows a level of maturity towards his goal. Had he been bothered that the captain stole his plan for Mariner, that would show us that Ransom cares more about the recognition than addressing the actual problem. Finally, in the lower decks, Boimler rejoices at his duty schedule. We also learn that the senior staff has access to better replicator programs. Wait, why is this a thing? Star Trek takes place in a post-scarce society. Why would food replicator access have restrictions based on rank? Is this normal across Starfleet, or is this just a jerk move that's done aboard this one ship? Out of nowhere, Tendi interrupts the scene when she surprises Rutherford with her being invited to an ascension, where a fellow crew member plans to evolve into an energy being transcending the physical realm. The ascension itself is far more organic than how they introduced this story to the episode.
Anyway, let's see what I got assigned.
Yep, They had no means to segue back to the A story, so they just put in the anyway line. Here, Mariner learns that she's got all the worst cleanup jobs on the ship. Before we follow her to see what those duties look like, Tendi has shown up for the ascension, and her excitement and curiosity end up ruining the officer's concentration and setting him back years. The rest of her story is trying to fix what she ruined, and it's rather boring and forgettable. We follow Mariner as she completes her duties. I find it really odd that ships need someone to manually remove biowaste from the holodeck. Would there not be a 24th century equivalent to a plumbing system put in place? And because they have matter conversion technology, would that waste not be funneled into a processing unit and repurposed as raw materials? I could understand a duty task of running maintenance on such a system, like replacing parts or upgrades, but for someone to actually remove and transport the waste from the holodeck itself just seems too antiquated for something in the 24th century. What I find interesting is that even though the duties aren't ideal, Mariner is actually doing them. We're not shown any indication of her doing a rushed or poor job, and the tasks also don't appear to be all that easy for her either. When we get to the carbon filter cleaning, we see that she's doing this task with other officers and decides to turn it into a competition. Ransom notices this and relays to the captain that Mariner is injecting fun into these lousy jobs, and with no worse jobs left to give Mariner, it seems the captain has lost this particular battle. In my opinion, this would have been a better way to introduce Mariner than seeing her drunk on illegal alcohol and stabbing a fellow crew member. She comes across as a bit more likable in this situation, and because she's doing tasks that are not ideal and somewhat difficult, we can relate to her struggle. Even though some of these moments were ridiculous, I actually kind of enjoyed them. Mariner's ability to turn lemons into lemonade frustrates the captain, and in her ready room she hatches an idea to play into what Mariner hates most about Starfleet. While Boimler is cleaning the conference room, the senior staff gathers to promote Mariner to lieutenant and issue her a gold uniform. This freaks out Boimler, who understandably is shocked by this moment. Mariner wants to take off, but her promotion comes with the responsibilities of partaking in a meeting discussing new conference room chairs. We transition into a montage where Mariner is doing work she finds boring and redundant, such as auditing files, reporting for management training, partaking in senior staff talent show of some kind, and a mandatory senior staff poker game. Boimler questions Mariner on how this happened. She's as confused as Boimler, and he infers that if he wants to get a promotion, he has to start acting more like Mariner. When Mariner reports to the captain, she is ordered to join in a mandatory birthday celebration for Commander Ransom. It is a very desperate attempt at comedy, telling us what the joke will be instead of showing us the painful experience. It's making the Next Generation's episode Starship Mine, with the character of Commander Hutchinson, looking far more palpable than it was originally conceived. Aboard the Merced, Durango, the captain, decides to move his ship closer to the Generation ship that they're towing to reflect their status among the Cerritos. When Ransom informs Durango that he's out of formation, the captain whines about how this mission is his duty to lead. What puzzles me is that if the captain is ordering a position change, should his engineering team not adjust the tractor beam to reflect the new position? Would that not be standard protocol, especially given the importance of this alien ship? No? All Starfleet officers are careless in this show? Not just on the Cerritos? Great! The position change causes some of the hull of the Generation ship to break off, releasing the terraforming biomatter, and is brought aboard the Merced by a tractor beam. As the compound spreads, it converts sections of the Merced into an organic ecosystem. Instead of doing the quick and smart thing like deactivating the tractor beam and taking the ship clear of the substance, Ransom just orders evasive maneuvers, which is really effective when your ship is beam tethered to another ship 10 times your size. The Cerritos gets infected as well, and the ship begins to grow strange new organic lifeforms and flora across the decks. As Ransom reports the change in events to the captain, remarking how the hull is being dissolved and altered, Boimler strolls in and pours coffee on Ransom. In engineering, we pick up with Tendi's story. Up until this point, she has been trying to help the Ascension guy get back on track, not just to help this officer, but because Tendi's character flaw is her insecurity when learning that someone doesn't like her. She needs to be liked by everyone, and she is hoping that by helping this officer ascend after she ruined his efforts, he'll like her and she'll be able to go on with her own life. The officer has been refusing her help, and we learn why in this scene. He doubted he would ever ascend, and reveals that this was his thing to stand out in Starfleet. He admits to using Tendi as a means to reset or abandon his efforts so that others wouldn't question why he hasn't ascended. Tendi's reaction? She admits that they're both jerks because they both wanted to be liked and were willing to lie about it. Thus, by her logic, they're best friends. So as of this episode, Tendi is defined as a needy, insecure science officer with a fluid position over the ship from medical to maintenance, all while she covers up her emotions behind a veneer of friendliness?
So, what you're saying is, this guy's a total wacko.
We return to Mariner and the captain where they are digging their way through the ship in the hopes of reaching environmental controls to reverse the terraforming effects. Here, we learn that Mariner's mom is an overbearing, judgmental bitch who makes passive-aggressive remarks to instill doubt in her kid. She justifies her behavior as looking out for her child, but what it really shows is that the captain doesn't have any faith in herself as a parent and needs to be looking over Mariner's shoulder at all times. This is some really good and effective character development. This would also make for an amazing mother-daughter relationship if Mariner wasn't always in the right by the episode's end. For Mariner as a Starfleet officer, she has no room to grow. She knows all the systems, reads all the mission briefs, has all the protocols memorized. The only change you can give her in Starfleet is her rank, and we see in this episode that a promotion doesn't change her core behavior. As a character, she's obstinate, arrogant, selfish, and rude. If this were a well-written show, those character traits would hamper her ability to do her job. But in Lower Decks, they're the reason she's successful. And if she's successful in her job and her personality, then she's not growing as a character. And if the flaws that she has rewards her, when we as an audience know that if we behaved in such a way we would face terrible consequences, we therefore can't relate and may dislike this character because of that. It gets worse when we see her one-on-one with her mother, and Mariner is the one that's commanding the situation. She's the one that knows how to solve the problem without the need to figure it out. She's the one that has all the knowledge just because the writers demand it. Because of this approach to Mariner, we now see another aspect that hurts her character. She doesn't face mystery or suspense or risk of failure. Because things come easy to her, she has no real value to us as an audience. People tend not to value things that come to them as easy compared to things that they need to actually work for. At no point have we seen Mariner experience real doubt when facing conflict. The following scene is a prime example of this. Mariner finds a console, confirms the problem, and then quickly has the answer. What makes it even worse is how she solves the problem by using the magical deflector array, a trick used sparingly in TNG, and in my opinion should never have been employed in the first place, and with Voyager, well heck, it's trickier to name an episode where they don't use the main deflector to solve their problem. I'm being a little hyperbolic here.
Captain, the primary relay for the replicator system is down.
Bypass the relay by rerouting power through the main deflector.
Captain, the main deflector is currently emitting a dampening field to save us from a Type 4 quantum singularity, as well as emitting an inverted magnetic pulse to drive off that weird swarm of space-dwelling lifeforms. B'Elanna is also using it to boost the transporter range while emitting radiation beams to hide the same transporter signal. 7 of 9 is also using it as an interplexing beacon so she can download transwarp coil schematics from the Borg, and Tom Paris is using it as a holographic projector to show his Captain Proton program to the Vidians.
So, what's the problem?
Well, I guess if the deflector can do all that, then the replicator shouldn't be an issue.
Of course, Mariner's solution impresses her mother, proving again that the captain is wrong for her behavior towards her daughter. The captain orders the computer to implement Mariner's solution and the ship is magically repaired. I use the term magically because earlier on, Ransom stated that the hull was dissolving, and now the terraforming effects which, and I'm quoting the show here, transform inert matter into a living ecosystem, vanish, leaving the ship effectively untouched. A keyword there, transform, as in change from one property to another. If this solution turns the new ecosystem into dust or goo, that would be a subsequent change, meaning there should still be holes in the hull from the initial change of matter. This solution should be venting crewmen into space, but as I said earlier, because of magic, there are no consequences to restoring the ship. Mariner saves the ship along with the Ascension guy who pushed Tendi out of the way of a falling rock and was pinned earlier. Now that he's free, he and Tendi kiss and this allows him to actually achieve ascension. For comedy, it is a painful process for this officer, and as he enters into the realm of all things energy, we are thrown some randomness of the universe being balanced on the back of a koala, because why not make it weird for weird's sake? Now that the Cerritos is stable, they're able to assist the Merced, which is all but lost. The captain orders the crew to be beamed aboard the generation ship, and Mariner does so without any hands lost. After dropping off the generation ship to a starbase, the captain and Mariner reconcile and express how fresh it was for them to work together instead of fighting. The captain thinks that they could make a great team working side by side, but Mariner finds that to be counter to her own interests. An admiral boards the ship to present the captain and Mariner with some medals, and then excuses himself because he has detected a strange signal. The admiral mispronounces the word sensors, or over-enunciates the word sensors. Either way, he says it in a fashion that Mariner needs to mock. Apparently, the Admiral is aware that he mispronounces words and is offended to be called out on it. When Mariner starts to yawn again, she's busted down to Ensign and returns to the lower decks with the rest of the team. Boimler is flabbergasted again, that Mariner had everything he ever wanted and squandered it. He questions why they are friends like the rest of us watching this show, and Mariner reveals that she has an access card to the good replicator programs and hands it over to Boimler. Thus, the episode ends with Mariner and the captain in the same positions as they were when it started. The problem with Mariner's insubordination and the captain wanting her off the ship? Not resolved. Even in the original Star Trek series, where they were episodic in nature and each episode had something of a reset of sorts from the previous one, at least the premise of the initial episode was resolved by its end. Here in Lower Decks, it's completely abandoned, and it really shouldn't have been. We got a taste of a decent ending of this story with Mariner and the captain. When the captain remarks on promoting Mariner, she should request a demotion. She should point out that she was promoted as punishment and that there are other officers aboard that want the position and responsibility that she is actively trying to avoid. Mariner could have shown some great character growth by coming clean with her mom and preferring to remain on the lower decks, and heck, even lie by saying that she'd rather earn the promotion the right way and not in an ironic way. I think that would have been a solid first step into making Mariner more likable on this show and also fit within the Star Trek brand. The previous episode was better, and it looked like it could have gone forward with the quality, but it took a big step back with this one. Well, only 6 more episodes of this until... son of a bitch. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. If you have anything to add to this episode, please leave a comment below. Thank you for watching, and never forget, it all starts with the script.